Subscribe to Storylab for more stories. Now, let's begin this one. Chapter 1. The Last Paradise. The Morpho butterfly's iridescent wings caught the dappled sunlight as Charlie Aguirre tracked its flight through the canopy. His weathered hands moved with practiced precision, adjusting the lens of his field camera to capture the electric blue shimmer. 23 days into the expedition, and the Amazon still managed to steal his breath with moments like these. "Charlie, you're going to want to see this," Hugh Chong called from 30 feet up the kapok tree, his voice tight with excitement. "I think we've got eggs from the harpy eagle nest." Charlie grinned, shouldering his pack. At 38, he'd spent the better part of 15 years documenting rare species in the world's most remote locations. But Hugh's enthusiasm after just 3 expeditions still reminded him why he'd fallen in love with this work. The research station was 400 miles from the nearest town. Civilization was a memory here, replaced by the ancient rhythms of the rainforest. His satellite phone buzzed once in his chest pocket. The sound was so out of place in the symphony of cicadas and howler monkeys that Charlie almost didn't recognize it. Out here, communication was limited to scheduled check-ins every 72 hours. This wasn't scheduled. He pulled the phone free, his stomach already tightening. The screen showed a missed call from an unknown Seattle number, followed by a voicemail notification. Charlie's daughter, Emma, lived in Seattle with her mother, Charlene. His finger hovered over the play button as Hugh descended from the tree, reading something in Charlie's expression. The voicemail crackled with static, then a woman's professional voice cut through. "Mr. Aguirre, this is Jane Robinson, Social Services with King County. I need you to call me immediately regarding your daughter, Emma." The voice paused, and Charlie heard papers shuffling. "She presented at school this morning with visible bruising on her arms and back." When questioned by the school nurse, Emma became very quiet, but we heard her whisper something about Mommy's new husband getting angry. "Mr. Aguirre, we've initiated a 72-hour protective investigation. Please contact me at..." The message cut off. Charlie played it again, then a third time, each word drilling deeper into his chest. "Bruising. Arms and back. Mommy's new husband." The phrase twisted like a knife because Charlie knew exactly who that was. Travis Burt, the man Charlene had married 8 months ago, barely a year after their divorce was finalized. "Charlie." Hugh's voice seemed to come from very far away. "What's wrong?" Charlie looked up at his colleague, and Hugh actually stepped back from whatever he saw in Charlie's eyes. In that moment, the careful, patient researcher disappeared, replaced by something Hugh had never seen before, something raw and dangerous that belonged more to the jungle than to civilization. "I need the emergency extraction. Now." Hugh didn't question it. He'd worked with Charlie long enough to trust that tone. Within minutes, Hugh was on the satellite phone with their expedition coordinator in Manaus, explaining that they had a family emergency requiring immediate evacuation. The response was predictable. The nearest helicopter was in Teff, a 2-hour flight away, and it would cost the expedition nearly $8,000 to divert it for a non-medical emergency. "Tell them yes," Charlie said flatly, already stripping his pack down to essentials. "Whatever it costs." While Hugh handled logistics, Charlie stood at the edge of their camp, staring into the green cathedral of the rainforest. His hands were steady. Years of handling venomous snakes and poisonous frogs had taught him absolute control, but his mind was racing. Emma was 7 years old, small for her age, with his dark eyes and Charlene's shy smile. She was afraid of thunderstorms and loved reading books about dragons. The thought of someone putting their hands on her in anger made something primal unfurl in Charlie's chest. He thought about Travis Burt, the man Charlene had introduced him to exactly once, 3 months before the wedding. They'd met at a coffee shop in Capitol Hill, Emma bouncing excitedly between them, oblivious to the tension. Travis had been all easy charm and firm handshakes, talking about his consulting business and his love of hiking. He'd even made a joke about Charlie's work. "Must be nice playing with bugs while the rest of us work real jobs." Charlie had smiled politely, biting back his response, because Charlene had asked him to be civil, for Emma's sake. He'd noticed things, though. The way Travis's smile never quite reached his eyes, the expensive watch that didn't match his claimed income. the subtle way he positioned himself between Charlene and Charlie, marking territory. Charlie had expressed his concerns to Charlene privately, but she'd been defensive. You had your chance, Charlie. You chose your expeditions over your family. Travis is here. Travis is present. That's what Emma needs. The accusation had stung because it held a grain of truth. Charlie's work required months away from home. The divorce had been painful but inevitable. Charlene couldn't handle another Christmas alone, another birthday party with just video calls from remote corners of the world. They tried to make it work, but in the end, she'd given him an ultimatum: the expeditions or his family. Charlie had chosen both, or tried to, and ended up losing half of everything anyway. Now someone was hurting his little girl, and Charlie was 400 miles from the nearest town, in a country where his emergency contacts were written in Portuguese on waterproof paper tucked in his boot. The helicopter took 3 hours to arrive instead of 2, weather delays. By the time Charlie heard the rotors cutting through the canopy, he'd already cataloged everything he knew about Travis Burt. Not much. An address in Seattle's Fremont neighborhood that Charlene had texted him for emergency contacts, a Facebook profile that was suspiciously sparse, and a vague story about business consulting that had never been properly explained. Hugh clasped Charlie's shoulder as the helicopter touched down in the small clearing they'd hacked out for emergency evacuations. Whatever you're walking into, brother, you call me if you need anything. Anything at all. Charlie nodded, unable to speak past the tightness in his throat. He climbed into the helicopter, and as it lifted above the endless green, he looked down at the research camp that had been his sanctuary. The Morpho butterfly was probably still dancing through the canopy. The harpy eagle was likely settling on her eggs, and life in the rainforest would continue its ancient patterns, completely indifferent to human drama. But Charlie's life had just split into before and after. Before the voicemail, he'd been Dr. Charlie Aguirre, wildlife researcher, divorced father, doing his best with a complicated situation. After the voicemail, he was something else entirely, something that had been dormant but never truly gone. His father had been a Marine, his mother a prosecutor. Charlie had grown up understanding that some lines, once crossed, demanded response. And Travis Burt had just crossed the kind of line that man didn't come back from. The helicopter banked toward Manaus, and Charlie pulled out his phone, reviewing the voicemail one more time. In his mind, he was already hunting. Chapter 2. First Blood. 29 hours after leaving the Amazon, Charlie walked into the King County Social Services office in downtown Seattle. He hadn't showered, hadn't changed from his field clothes, and probably smelled like a combination of insect repellent and rainforest muck. He didn't care. Jane Robinson was a thin woman in her 50s with kind eyes that had seen too much. She stood when Charlie entered, her handshake firm but sympathetic. Mr. Aguirre, thank you for coming so quickly. I understand you were overseas. South America. I got here as fast as I could. Charlie's voice was hoarse from lack of sleep. Where's Emma? Is she safe? She's with a temporary foster placement right now. We couldn't leave her with her mother because... Jane paused, choosing her words carefully. Because we couldn't confirm that the home environment was safe and Mrs. Burt was resistant to our investigation. Charlie felt his jaw tighten. Charlene wouldn't hurt Emma. Perhaps not directly. Jane gestured to a folder on her desk. But she also didn't report the bruising, didn't seek medical attention, and initially denied that Mr. Burt had done anything wrong. Our interview with Emma painted a different picture. She opened the folder, and Charlie's hands clenched into fists before he could stop them. The photographs showed his daughter's small arms mottled with finger-shaped bruises, dark purple marks that spoke of grown man's strength applied to delicate child flesh. Her back showed similar marks. Someone had grabbed her hard enough to leave evidence for days. Emma told the school nurse that Travis, she calls him Travis, not Dad, which is notable, gets angry when she's too loud or makes messes. She said he grabbed her 3 days ago when she spilled juice on his computer. Mrs. Burt apparently wasn't home. Jane's professional mask slipped for just a moment. Mr. Aguirre, I've been doing this job for 23 years. These bruises are consistent with aggressive restraint. In my professional opinion, Emma is afraid of Travis Burt. Charlie forced himself to breathe. What happens now? We've opened a full investigation. There will be interviews, a home evaluation, possibly police involvement if we determine charges are warranted. The temporary custody order gives us 72 hours to determine if Emma can safely return home or if alternative arrangements need to be made. I want custody. The words came out harder than Charlie intended. I'm her father. I want my daughter with me. Jane's expression softened with something that looked like pity. Mr. Aguirre, I understand, but according to your divorce decree, you have supervised visitation only 2 weekends a month. The court determined that your work schedule and frequent travel made you unsuitable as a primary custodian. That was before Charlie bit off the words, forcing himself to think like a researcher instead of a father. Emotion wouldn't help Emma. Strategy would. Can I see her? Yes, but supervised. Let me make some calls. An hour later, Charlie sat in a small visitation room decorated with children's drawings and battered toys. When Emma walked in, holding a social worker's hand, Charlie's heart broke all over again. She looked smaller somehow, her dark hair pulled into a messy ponytail, wearing clothes that weren't hers. When she saw him, her face crumpled. "Daddy!" She ran to him, and Charlie caught her, holding her carefully because he could feel the stiffness in her small body. She buried her face in his shoulder, and he felt her tears soaking through his shirt. "I'm here, baby girl. Daddy's here now. I was scared you wouldn't come back," Emma whispered. "You were so far away." Charlie pulled back just enough to look at her face. "Emma, listen to me. I will always come back for you. Always. No matter where I am, no matter what I'm doing, if you need me, I will be there. Do you understand?" She nodded, her small hand gripping his shirt like a lifeline. They sat together on the floor, Emma in his lap like she used to when she was smaller, before the divorce made everything complicated. She didn't talk about Travis or the bruises, and Charlie didn't push. Instead, he told her stories about the Morpho butterflies and the Harpy eagle, about Hugh getting chased by a confused armadillo, about the time he nearly stepped on a fer-de-lance snake and had to stand completely still for 20 minutes while it decided he wasn't interesting. Emma giggled at that story, her laugh thin but real. When their hour was up, she clung to him, and it took every ounce of Charlie's will to gently disentangle her arms. "I'll see you tomorrow, okay? I promise." "Don't let me go back there," Emma whispered, so quietly the social worker almost missed it. "Please, Daddy, don't let Travis be angry at me again." Charlie made a promise he wasn't sure he could keep. "You're safe now. I won't let anything happen to you." As the social worker led Emma away, Charlie remained on the floor, his hands shaking with the effort of maintaining control. A better man might have gone through proper channels, trusted the system, let justice take its slow, bureaucratic course. But Charlie had spent his adult life studying predators, learning their patterns, understanding that the natural world operated on rules far older than courtrooms and custody hearings. Travis Burt had put his hands on Charlie's daughter. Whatever happened next, Travis had earned. That evening, Charlie stood outside the Fremont house he'd once called home. It was a modest craftsman-style place with a blue door and a garden bed that Charlene had always loved. Charlie had paid half the mortgage even after the divorce, wanting Emma to have stability. Now it felt like he'd been financing his daughter's nightmare. The house was lit from within, and through the window, Charlie could see movement. After a moment, Charlene appeared in the living room, her blonde hair pulled back, her face tight with stress. She was on the phone, pacing, her free hand gesturing emphatically. Whatever conversation she was having, it wasn't pleasant. Charlie knocked. The conversation inside cut off immediately. A moment later, the door opened, and Charlene's blue eyes widened. "Charlie? Oh my God, when did you? Where is he?" Charlie's voice was quiet, level, and absolutely cold. Charlene's face hardened. "If you mean Travis, he's not here. And before you start accusing people, maybe you should hear the whole story." "The whole story?" "Emma has bruises shaped like adult fingers on her arms and back." "What's the rest of the story, Charlene? What could possibly make that okay?" "Nothing makes it okay." Charlene's composure cracked, tears springing to her eyes. "I didn't know, Charlie. I swear to God, I didn't know he was being so rough with her." He said He told me he just grabbed her arm to stop her from spilling more juice. That it was an accident. An accident that left bruises for 4 days. Charlie stepped forward, and Charlene actually backed up. Where is he? He has an apartment in Sodo. Some kind of office space. He's been staying there since social services showed up. She fumbled for her phone, her hands shaking. Charlie, I'm so sorry. I never thought. Travis was so good with them at first. He took her to the park, helped with her homework. I thought I'd finally found someone stable. Charlie took the address she offered, memorizing it. You need to file for divorce. Tomorrow. And you need to cooperate fully with the investigation. I am. Charlene's tears were flowing freely now. Charlie, you have to believe me. I love Emma more than anything. If I'd known. But you didn't know. Because you weren't paying attention. The words were cruel, and Charlie watched them land like physical blows. I was 400 miles from civilization, and I got here faster than you protected our daughter. He turned and walked away, leaving Charlene sobbing in the doorway of the house they'd once shared. It wasn't fair. Charlie knew that. Charlene was a victim in this too, manipulated by whatever Travis Burt really was. But Emma was 7 years old with bruises on her back, and fair didn't matter anymore. The Sodo address led Charlie to a converted warehouse space in Seattle's industrial district. The building housed several small businesses, a craft brewery, a graphic design studio, and on the third floor, a company called Burt Solutions, LLC. Charlie stood across the street, studying the building's security, the parking patterns, the flow of foot traffic. His phone rang. Eric Rivera's name flashed on screen. Hugh called me, his half-brother said without preamble. Said you had a family emergency and came back like you were running from a forest fire. What's going on? Charlie filled him in, and the line went silent for a long moment. Eric was 5 years younger, tougher, shaped by 4 tours in Afghanistan with Army Rangers. They'd grown up in different households, but had been close since their father's funeral 12 years ago. If anyone would understand what Charlie was about to do, it was Eric. Where are you? Eric asked. Outside the target's office. Don't do anything stupid until I get there. I'm serious, Charlie. Whatever you're thinking, you think it through first. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Charlie agreed, but his eyes never left the building. On the third floor, a light was on in the Burt Solutions office. And through the window, Charlie could see a figure moving around. A broad-shouldered man with sandy hair and an easy confidence that came from never facing real consequences. Travis Burt was about to learn what happened when you hurt the wrong man's child. 20 minutes later, Eric pulled up in his black F-150, and Charlie filled him in on everything he'd learned. Eric listened quietly, his jaw tightening when Charlie described Emma's bruises. All right, Eric said finally. So we need to know who this guy really is before you do anything. Let me make some calls. Eric still had contacts from his military days, people who could access databases and records that civilians couldn't touch. While he worked his phone, Charlie continued watching the building. Around 9 p.m., Travis emerged, talking animatedly on his cell phone, laughing at something. He got into a BMW 5 Series and drove away, never once looking around to see if anyone was watching. Got something, Eric said, his voice grim. Travis Burt, 34 years old. 2 arrests, no convictions. 1 for assault in Oregon that was pleaded down, 1 for illegal gambling in Nevada that got dismissed on a technicality. He's got some interesting financial activity, though. Multiple LLCs, cash businesses, and get this, he's part owner of an underground fighting venue in Georgetown. Charlie turned to look at his brother. Underground fighting? The kind that's not sanctioned by any athletic commission. My contact says it's known in certain circles. Bare knuckle, minimal rules, betting runs 6 figures on busy nights. And Travis isn't just an owner. He fights. Pieces started clicking together in Charlie's mind. The expensive car, the vague business explanations, the controlled aggression that could be turned on a 7-year-old child. Travis Burt was a predator who'd found a legal gray area to exercise his violence and make money doing it. Where's this venue? Charlie asked. Charlie, I know what you're thinking. Where? Eric sighed. I'll take you. But we're just looking tonight. Reconnaissance only. Promise me. Charlie promised, but they both knew it was a lie. Chapter 3. Predator Study. The underground fighting venue occupied the basement of an old machine shop in Georgetown, one of Seattle's grittier neighborhoods. From the outside, it looked abandoned. Metal siding covered in graffiti, windows dark, chain-link fence topped with barbed wire. But the parking lot held a dozen expensive cars, and Charlie could feel the bass thump of music through the ground as they approached. "There's a bouncer at the side entrance," Eric murmured. They were parked half a block away, watching through binoculars. "Guy looks ex-military. This isn't some amateur operation." Charlie studied the venue with the same analytical focus he'd use for a field site. 2 exits that he could see, one main entrance through the loading dock, one emergency exit on the east side. Security cameras at the corners, professional installation. Someone had money invested in this operation. "Where do we get in?" "We don't. Not tonight." Eric lowered his binoculars. "Charlie, you're not thinking straight. This isn't some tourist bar in Manaus. These people are connected, they're dangerous, and they're running an illegal operation, which means they don't play by normal rules." "Neither do I." Charlie turned to his brother. "Emma has bruises, Eric. Finger-shaped bruises. The legal system is going to take weeks, maybe months, and in the meantime, Travis gets to walk around free. He gets to sleep in a comfortable bed, eat good food, live his life while my daughter has nightmares. And if you go in there half-cocked and get yourself killed, what does Emma get then?" The question hit home. Charlie sat back, forcing himself to think like a researcher instead of father. When he studied dangerous animals in the wild, he didn't just charge in. He observed, he learned patterns, he understood the ecosystem before making a move. Travis Burt was just another predator. Dangerous, yes, but also predictable if you knew what to look for. "You're right," Charlie admitted. "I need more information. I need to understand who he is, how he operates, what his vulnerabilities are." "Now you're talking." Eric started the truck. "I've got a friend who might be able to help. Wade Barton. We served together in Afghanistan. After he got out, he fell into some rough circles. Last I heard, he was doing security work for various underground operations around Seattle. If anyone knows about Travis's fighting venue, it'll be Wade." They met Wade Barton at a dive bar in White Center at 11 p.m. Wade was a compact man with scarred knuckles and careful eyes, the kind of person who always knew where the exits were. He greeted Eric with a brief hug and studied Charlie with undisguised curiosity. "This is my brother, Charlie," Eric said after they'd settled into a back booth. "He needs information about Travis Burt." Wade's expression went neutral. "That's a dangerous name to be asking about. What's your interest?" Charlie told him, watching Wade's face carefully. Most people flinched or showed sympathy when they heard about a child being hurt. Wade just nodded slowly, his expression darkening. "Yeah, that tracks. He's got a mean streak. I've seen him fight, and he doesn't just win. He hurts people. Even when they're down, even when the fight's over, he keeps going until someone pulls him off." Wade took a long drink of his beer. "Word is, he's connected to some serious people. Drug distributors out of Portland, maybe some money laundering through his various businesses. The fight venue is just one piece. How would someone get into one of his fights?" Charlie asked. Wade and Eric both turned to stare at him. "You? No offense, but Travis would break you in half. He's 6'2", 220, and he's been training since he was a teenager. He's fought professionally in regional MMA circuits, got banned for excessive violence. The underground scene is where guys like him end up. I'm not looking to fight him. I'm looking to understand him, his patterns, his associates, his vulnerabilities. In my work, we call it behavioral ecology. You can't deal with a predator until you understand its role in the ecosystem." Wade considered this, then slowly nodded. "There's a fight this Friday. Travis is scheduled against some hotshot from California. I can get you in as my guest, but you keep your head down. These people don't like strangers asking questions." "Done," Charlie said immediately, ignoring Eric's look of alarm. Over the next 3 days, Charlie lived 2 parallel lives. During the day, he was the concerned father, meeting with lawyers, social workers, and child psychologists. He learned that Emma's case was proceeding, but slowly. The system was overloaded. Travis had hired an expensive attorney, and without a criminal charge, the custody situation was murky. "The problem is," his lawyer explained, "a sharp woman named Rebecca Patel. You voluntarily agreed to limited custody in the divorce. Proving that the environment has changed enough to warrant a modification will take time. Meanwhile, Travis isn't Emma's legal guardian. Charlene is. If she agrees to separate from him and cooperates with counseling, the court might allow Emma to return home. And if she doesn't, then we fight for custody modification, but I'm telling you, it could take 6 months to a year. Family court moves slowly, and Travis's attorney is already painting him as a misunderstood disciplinarian who made one mistake. At night, Charlie researched. He compiled everything he could find about Travis Burt: property records, business filings, social media posts, everything. Travis had started the fighting venue 3 years ago with 2 partners. Wade Barton wasn't on the paperwork, but Charlie found another name that kept appearing: Wade's cousin, Doug McKee, who had his own interesting history of violence-related arrests. Charlie also looked into the science of bruising, recovery times, psychological trauma in children. He read studies on domestic violence patterns, on charming abusers, on the cycle of escalation. Every article, every statistic, every case study reinforced what Charlie already knew in his gut. Travis Burt would do this again. Men like him always did, and they kept doing it until someone made them stop. On Thursday evening, Jane Robinson called with an update. Emma can see you again tomorrow, unsupervised this time. We're making progress toward a more permanent solution, but Mr. Aguirre, I need you to be patient. The system works, but it works slowly. What about Travis? Is he being charged? That's up to the police, not social services. They've interviewed him, and Jane's hesitation spoke volumes. He was very convincing. Apologetic, explained it as a misunderstanding, said Emma exaggerates. Without physical evidence of ongoing abuse, and with Mrs. Burt supporting his story, it's difficult to pursue criminal charges. Charlie thanked her and hung up, his hands steady but his mind racing. The system wasn't going to protect Emma. It was going to process her case through paperwork and hearings while Travis walked free, learning to be more careful next time, leaving bruises where they wouldn't show. Friday night, Charlie followed Wade and Eric through the side entrance of the Georgetown venue. The bouncer, a massive Samoan man with cold eyes, studied them but waved Wade through with a nod. Inside, the space had been transformed from abandoned warehouse into something primal and electric. The fighting cage was in the center, surrounded by tiered seating that was already 2/3 full. The crowd was diverse. Men in suits mixing with leather-jacketed bikers. Women in evening were sitting next to blue-collar workers still in their work boots. Money changed hands openly as bookies worked the room. The air smelled of sweat, beer, and something darker, the metallic anticipation of violence. Stay close, Wade said, leading them to seats in the 3rd row. Don't make eye contact with anyone. Don't ask questions. You're here to watch, nothing more. The fight started at 9. They were brutal, professional in execution, but savage in result. No rounds, no protective gear, minimal rules. Fighters went until someone quit or couldn't continue. Charlie watched with clinical detachment, noting patterns, understanding what drew people to this spectacle. It wasn't just the violence. It was the authenticity of it, the raw honesty of 2 people testing themselves against each other with nothing hidden, nothing held back. Travis's fight was scheduled for 11. When he emerged from a back room, the crowd erupted. He was popular here, Charlie realized. The golden boy of the underground scene. Travis wore only fight shorts and hand wraps, his body lean and defined, covered in tattoos that Charlie hadn't seen in their brief meeting at the coffee shop. He worked the crowd, high-fiving regulars, blowing a kiss to a blonde woman in the front row. His opponent was bigger, heavily muscled, with a reputation announced by the MC as the California Crusher. The betting seemed evenly split. The fight lasted 4 minutes. Charlie watched Travis move like a completely different person, fluid, efficient, predatory. He absorbed hits that would have dropped a normal person, and when he struck back, it was with calculated brutality. He wasn't just fighting, he was hurting. When the California fighter went down from a liver shot that made the crowd gasp, Travis followed him to the ground and didn't stop until 2 men physically pulled him away. The crowd loved it. They screamed and chanted Travis's name while the California fighter writhed on the mat, coughing blood. Charlie understood then. Travis wasn't just violent. He was addicted to the domination, the power of breaking something. Emma's bruises weren't an accident or a loss of control. They were Travis being exactly who he was, just with a target who couldn't fight back. After the fight, Wade led them toward the exit, but Charlie's attention was caught by a conversation near the cage. Travis was talking to an older man in an expensive suit, and though Charlie couldn't hear the words, he could read the body language. Money being discussed, a business deal being negotiated. "Who's that?" Charlie asked Wade quietly. Wade glanced over, and his face went pale. "That's Clifton Miller. He runs. Look, we need to go. Now." Outside, Wade turned on them with uncharacteristic anger. "Don't ever ask me about Clifton Miller in there. He's connected to real organized crime, the kind that makes people disappear. If he's doing business with Travis, then Travis is into something way bigger than illegal fights." "What kind of business?" "The kind that gets you killed for asking questions." Wade looked at Eric. "I helped because you're a brother, but I'm out. Whatever you're planning, leave me out of it." After Wade left, Eric turned to Charlie. "You got what you came for. You understand what Travis is now. So what's next? Because I'm telling you, charging in there and trying to beat him at his own game is suicide." Charlie stared at the warehouse, his mind working through options and discarding them. He couldn't fight Travis physically. That was a losing game. He couldn't rely on the legal system. It moved too slowly and Travis had resources. But Charlie had spent his career studying predators, and he knew one universal truth. Every predator had a predator. Every apex hunter had something that could bring it down. Travis Burt thought he was untouchable, protected by money and violence and the gray area of the law. But he made one critical mistake. He'd hurt Charlie Aguirre's daughter. And Charlie had just spent 15 years learning how to hunt the most dangerous creatures on the planet. "I need to make some calls," Charlie said finally. "And I need to get back to my research notes. There's something from the field that might help." "Research notes? Charlie, what are you thinking?" Charlie smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Did you know that the poison dart frog, despite being one of the most toxic creatures on Earth, is completely harmless if removed from its natural environment? It gets its poison from the insects it eats in the wild. Take away that ecosystem, and it's just another frog." "I don't follow." "Travis is dangerous in his ecosystem. The fights, the violence, the power structure he's built. But every predator can be removed from its habitat. You just have to know what you're doing." Charlie turned to his brother. "I need you to trust me on this. And I need you to help me get access to something most people can't touch." "What?" "Real poison. The kind I used to study. The kind that doesn't exist in the United States outside of research facilities and specialized collections." Eric stared at his brother for a long moment, then slowly nodded. "This is going to end badly, isn't it? For Travis?" Charlie's smile widened slightly. "Absolutely." Chapter 4, Venom Protocol. The University of Washington's Toxicology Research Department was housed in a nondescript building near the medical campus, far from the main undergraduate foot traffic. Charlie had consulted with them before, sharing field samples from his expeditions. Now he stood in the parking lot at 7 a.m., watching researchers arrive for their early shifts, looking for one specific person. Dr. Muriel Bryan emerged from a Prius at 7:15, carrying a coffee thermos and humming something under her breath. She'd been Charlie's graduate school advisor 12 years ago, and they'd maintained a collegial relationship ever since. When she spotted him, her face lit up with genuine pleasure. "Charlie, when did you get back from the Amazon?" They fell into easy conversation as she led him inside, past the security desk and into the lab areas. Muriel was in her 60s now, but her mind was still sharp as obsidian. She ran one of the most comprehensive venom research programs in the Pacific Northwest, studying everything from snake venoms for anticoagulant applications to spider neurotoxins for neurological research. "I need a favor," Charlie said once they were in her office. "And I need you to not ask too many questions about why." Muriel's expression shifted from friendly to cautious. That's not a good way to start a conversation, especially in a research lab with federal oversight. Charlie pulled out his phone, showing her a photo of Emma's bruises. "My daughter. Her mother's new husband did this." Muriel's hand went to her mouth. Oh my God, Charlie. Have you reported this? Social services is investigating, but it's slow. The police aren't pursuing charges. The family court system will take months. Meanwhile, the man who did this is walking around free, fighting in illegal venues, and making money off violence. Charlie leaned forward. I'm not asking you to do anything illegal. I just need access to the Venom database to understand dosage levels, toxicity profiles, detection windows for common screening. Charlie, what are you planning? Justice. The kind that doesn't require a courtroom. Muriel was quiet for a long moment, her fingers drumming on her desk. If I help you with this, and you do something that comes back to me, to this lab, it won't. I'm very good at what I do, Muriel. You know that. She didn't know. She'd watched Charlie handle the most dangerous creatures in the world with steady hands and careful planning. Finally, she turned to her computer. What specifically do you need? Over the next hour, they discussed various venoms and toxins. Charlie wasn't looking for something lethal. That would be too obvious, too traceable. He needed something that would cause suffering, that would hurt in ways that couldn't be easily diagnosed, that would make Travis Burr understand what vulnerability felt like. The Brazilian wandering spider, Muriel said finally, pulling up research files. Phenutria nigriventer. Its venom contains a peptide called TX2-6 that causes extreme pain, cardiovascular stress, and in males, priapism, painful, uncontrollable erections lasting hours. Non-lethal in most cases, but absolutely agonizing. And here's the thing, it's not commonly tested for in standard toxicology screens. If someone presented at an ER with symptoms, doctors would treat the symptoms but might not identify the cause. Do you have samples? We have venom samples from 3 different Phenutria species for research purposes, all properly documented and secured. She gave him a hard look, and all accounted for down to the microliter. I can't help you steal anything, Charlie. I'm not asking you to, but if I were to hypothetically create a realistic scenario where a small amount went missing, contaminated sample, spillage during routine maintenance, could you look the other way? Muriel closed her eyes. This could end my career, or it could save my daughter from living in fear. Your choice, Muriel. But either way, I'm doing this. The only question is whether I have your help, or if I do it another way that's riskier for everyone. That evening, Charlie met Eric at a gun range in Auburn. Eric had been insistent about one thing. If Charlie was going after Travis, he needed to be prepared for the possibility of violence. You're not going to beat him in a fight, Eric said bluntly, loading a Glock 19 and demonstrating proper stance. But you can equalize the situation. Have you ever shot a gun? Not since you took me shooting 10 years ago. Then we're starting from basics. They spent 2 hours on the range. Charlie had steady hands from years of handling delicate field equipment, and his observational skills translated well to marksmanship. By the end of the session, he could hit center mass consistently at 15 yards. It's not about being a sharpshooter, Eric explained. It's about having options. If this goes sideways, if Travis figures out what you're doing, you need to be able to protect yourself and Emma. Eric then taught him about tactical awareness, how to enter a room, how to check blind corners, how to move in a way that minimized exposure to threats. It was a crash course in skills that had taken Eric years to learn in the military, condensed into a single evening because they didn't have time for more. You understand this isn't a game, right? Eric said as they drove back to Seattle. Once you start down this road, there's no going back. If Travis figures out you're coming for him, he will retaliate. And men like him don't just throw punches, they destroy lives. He destroyed my daughter's sense of safety. He left bruises on a 7-year-old. Whatever he does to me, I've earned by being her father. Charlie stared out at the passing streetlights. I spent years studying predators in the wild, Eric. I've watched jaguars hunt, seen anacondas kill prey 3 times their size, documented the patient stalking patterns of harpy eagles. You know what I learned? The most successful predators aren't the biggest or the fastest. They're the ones that understand their prey better than the prey understands itself. The next day, Saturday, Charlie picked up Emma for an unsupervised visit. They went to the zoo, her favorite place, and spent hours looking at the animals. Emma seemed more relaxed than she had since Charlie's return, laughing at the otters and asking questions about the tropical birds. But when they stopped at the reptile house, Emma's mood shifted. She stood in front of the glass enclosure housing a large python, her small face drawn with worry. "Daddy, is Travis going to get in trouble?" Charlie knelt beside her. "Yes, baby, he is. But Mommy said he didn't mean to hurt me. She said he was just trying to teach me to be more careful." The words hit Charlie like a physical blow. Charlene was still defending Travis, still making excuses. That meant the social services intervention might not be enough. Charlene might take him back, might convince herself that it was a one-time mistake. "Emma, listen to me very carefully. What Travis did was wrong. Adults should never hurt children, even when they're teaching them something. And people who truly care about you don't leave bruises." He touched her arm gently, where the marks were finally starting to fade to yellow-green. "Real love doesn't hurt like this." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I want to live with you, Daddy. I'm working on that. But in the meantime, you're going to stay somewhere safe, and I'm going to make sure Travis can never hurt you again. Can you trust me on that?" She nodded, wrapping her small arms around his neck. As Charlie held his daughter, he felt the last vestiges of doubt evaporate. Whatever he had to do, whatever lines he had to cross, it was worth it to give Emma back her childhood. That night, Charlie returned to his apartment and found a package waiting. It was from Hugh in Brazil, a small, innocuous box with proper customs declarations listing it as biological research samples, educational use only. Inside, carefully packed in sealed vials with appropriate documentation, were various insect specimens from their expedition, along with a handwritten note. "Not sure what you need these for, but I trust you. Call me when you can talk. Hugh." Charlie smiled. The specimens weren't what mattered. It was the shipping method, the documentation, the proof that he could receive biological materials through legitimate channels. It would provide cover for what came next. On Monday morning, there was an incident at Muriel's lab. A refrigeration unit malfunctioned over the weekend, potentially compromising several venom samples. The exact quantity lost was unclear, possibly as much as 5 milliliters of various toxins, though Muriel was still inventorying. She filed the appropriate paperwork, noting that some samples might have been contaminated beyond use and would need to be properly disposed of. That same afternoon, Charlie received a call from Wade Barton. "I told you I was out," Wade said without preamble. "But I've been thinking about what you said about your daughter. I've got a kid too, and if someone did that to her..." He trailed off. "Look, I'm not helping you do anything illegal, but I might know someone who can give you information about Travis's other business dealings. Meet me at the same bar, tomorrow at 8. Charlie showed up early, watching Wade arrive with another man, older, weathered, with the careful movements of someone who'd learned not to make sudden gestures. Wade introduced him as Ronnie Douglas, and what Ronnie had to say changed everything. "Travis is moving product for Clifton Miller's people," Ronnie explained, nursing a whiskey. "Not drugs directly. He's smarter than that. He's laundering money through his various businesses, including the fight venue. Miller likes him because Travis is smart, ambitious, and has a legitimate public face. The business consulting thing is real, sort of. He consults for small businesses, shows them how to structure their finances, and some of them happen to be fronts for Miller's operations." "Why are you telling me this?" Ronnie's expression darkened. "Because Travis is getting sloppy, and he's drawing attention. He's been skimming for Miller. Not much, but enough that people are noticing. And when Miller notices, people disappear. I've got my own reasons for wanting Travis to go down before he takes the whole operation with him." "What kind of proof do you have?" "None that would hold up in court. But I know where Travis keeps his real books, the ones that track all the transactions he's hiding from Miller. If someone were to get their hands on those, and if someone were to make sure Miller knew about the skimming..." Ronnie shrugged. "Let's just say the problem might solve itself." Charlie leaned back, his mind racing. This was better than he'd hoped. He didn't need to destroy Travis himself. He just needed to put him in a position where Travis's own world would tear him apart. The venom was one tool. This information was another. And the more he learned about Travis's operation, the more vulnerable the man became. Where does he keep these books? His apartment in Sodo. 3rd floor, corner unit. Security's decent, but not impossible. He's usually there Tuesday and Thursday nights, working late. Ronnie met Charlie's eyes. I'm giving you this because I want Travis gone, but I'm not involved beyond this conversation. You get caught, you never heard my name. After Ronnie left, Wade stayed behind, working his way through his second beer. You really going through with this? Yes. Then you need to know something else. Travis has a partner in the fight venue, Doug McKee. He's my cousin, and Wade struggled to find words. Doug's a true believer. He loves the violence, loves the money, but mostly he loves Travis. Hero worship, almost. If you go after Travis, Doug will come for you. And Doug doesn't have Travis's self-control. I'll keep that in mind. Wade studied Charlie for a long moment. You're not what I expected. When Eric described you, I pictured some academic type who'd fold at the first sign of trouble. But you're different. You've got that look that some of the guys had in Afghanistan, the ones who came back from particularly bad operations. Like something inside you broke, but you learned to use the pieces. Something did break. The day I saw my daughter's bruises. Charlie finished his water, leaving cash for the drinks. Thanks for the information, Wade. And for what it's worth, I am an academic. I just happen to study things that kill. Chapter 5. The Trap Sets. Tuesday night, Charlie watched Travis's Soto apartment from a rental car parked 2 blocks away. The building was a converted warehouse, like so many in the area, with exposed brick and industrial windows. Security was a single camera at the main entrance and a key fob system for residents. Not impossible, but not trivial either. Travis arrived at 8:30, parking his BMW in the ground-level garage. Lights came on in the third-floor corner unit 20 minutes later. Charlie waited another hour, confirming the pattern. Travis alone, working, no visitors. This was his routine on Tuesday nights. Charlie made notes, sketched the building layout, identified the fire escape that accessed the 3rd floor. He was back in researcher mode, gathering data, understanding the environment before making a move. His phone buzzed with a text from Jane Robinson. Emma doing better. Temporary foster placement working out. Court date scheduled for 2 weeks from today. Call me tomorrow. 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, a judge would decide whether Emma could return to Charlene's care, whether Travis would face any consequences, whether the system had done enough to protect a 7-year-old girl with bruises. Charlie knew how these cases went. He'd read enough reports over the past week. Without a criminal charge, without Charlene firmly choosing Emma over Travis, the court would likely mandate counseling and supervised visits, giving Travis a chance to prove himself changed. 2 weeks was an eternity, and it was more time than Charlie was willing to give. On Wednesday, Charlie returned to Muriel's lab. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, and Charlie felt a stab of guilt for putting her in this position. The venom samples that were compromised, Charlie said quietly, standing in her office doorway. Did you have to dispose of all of them? Most. Some were salvageable. She didn't look at him. There were 5 milliliters of Phenutria venom in the compromised batch. The paperwork shows it was destroyed. But in reality, only 3 milliliters were truly contaminated. The other 2, she handed him a small insulated container, the kind used for transporting biological samples. This never happened. I never saw you. And if this comes back to bite me, I will deny everything and cooperate fully with any investigation. Are we clear? Crystal clear. Thank you, Muriel. Don't thank me. Just make sure that man never hurts another child. She finally met his eyes. And Charlie? Be careful. Venom doesn't discriminate between guilty and innocent. Make absolutely sure you're right about this. Charlie took the container, feeling its cold weight in his hands. Inside were 2 sealed vials containing one of the most painful toxins nature had ever created. He'd studied these compounds in the field, documented their effects, understood exactly how they worked. Now he was going to weaponize that knowledge. The moral weight of what he was planning should have felt heavier, should have made him hesitate. But every time doubt crept in, Charlie thought about Emma's whispered words. Don't let me go back there. Don't let Travis be angry at me again. And the doubt evaporated. Thursday afternoon, Charlie sat in Rebecca Patel's law office, listening to her outline their strategy for the custody hearing. The good news is that social services is recommending Emma not return to Charlene's care, while Travis is in the picture. The bad news is that Charlene is refusing to separate from him. She's claiming the incident was exaggerated, that Emma bruises easily, that Travis has been attending anger management counseling. Has he? He's been to 3 sessions, which is enough to show a judge he's taking it seriously. Rebecca pushed a folder across the desk. Here's the reality, Charlie. Unless we can prove ongoing abuse, or unless Charlene agrees to separate from Travis, your odds of gaining primary custody are maybe 50-50. The court prefers to keep children with their mother when possible, especially when the father has a history of long absences. So what do? We fight. We document everything. We bring in character witnesses. We show that you're committed to being present. But I'm telling you now, it's going to be a long battle. She hesitated. Unless something changes. If Travis were to, say, get arrested for something else. Or if Charlene had a reason to fear him. Or if the situation escalated in a way that forced the court's hand. Charlie heard what she wasn't saying. You're telling me the system needs something dramatic to actually protect Emma. I'm telling you the system is designed to move slowly and carefully, which usually serves justice but sometimes fails children. Rebecca leaned forward. I'm also telling you off the record that I've been doing family law for 18 years, and sometimes the fathers who win are the ones who show the court they'll do anything legal, to protect their kids. Be creative, Charlie, within the bounds of the law. That night, Charlie prepared. He studied the chemical composition of Phenutria venom, researching delivery methods, dosage calculations, and expected symptom progression. The venom caused intense pain through overstimulation of nerve receptors, but it wasn't typically lethal to healthy adults. Travis would suffer, God, how he would suffer, but he would survive. Charlie also studied Travis's financial records, piecing together information from public sources and what Ronnie had shared. The pattern was clear: money coming in from various sources, being filtered through legitimate businesses, and occasionally small amounts disappearing. Travis was skimming from Clifton Miller, maybe $5,000 here, $10,000 there. Over 6 months, it added up to real money. The kind of money that men like Miller killed for. The plan crystallized. Charlie would use the venom to incapacitate Travis, to make him vulnerable. Then he would ensure that Miller's people found out about the skimming. And while Travis was dealing with both medical crisis and criminal consequences, Charlie would make his move for custody, showing the court that Emma's environment had become dangerous. It was complex, with multiple moving parts and a dozen ways it could go wrong. But Charlie had planned and executed research expeditions in some of the world's most challenging environments. He knew how to manage risk, how to adapt when things didn't go according to plan. Friday night, Charlie returned to Travis's apartment building. This time, he came prepared. Eric had provided some items: a lockpick set, a small camera, night vision goggles. Charlie wore dark clothes, kept his head down, and waited for his opportunity. At 10 p.m., a pizza delivery driver entered the building, buzzed up to a different apartment. Charlie slipped in behind him, catching the door before it closed. The hallway cameras were obvious, so Charlie kept his face angled down, moving with purpose like he belonged. The fire escape access was on the east side, marked as an emergency exit only. Charlie picked the simple lock in under a minute. Eric's crash course had covered the basics. The fire escape was metal grating, 3 stories of switchback stairs with a view of the alley below. Travis's apartment windows faced north, away from the fire escape, but there was a narrow ledge that ran along the building. Charlie tested it carefully, then inched his way across, his researcher's balance and comfort with heights serving him well. Through the window, he could see into Travis's home office, a desk covered with papers, multiple monitors, filing cabinets along one wall. The window was locked, but it was an old building with old windows. Charlie used a thin metal shim to slip the latch, working slowly and carefully. 10 minutes of patient effort, and the window slid open. Charlie didn't enter. Not yet. This was reconnaissance. He took photos with his phone, documenting the office layout, the position of the filing cabinets, the security system panel by the door. Then he carefully closed and relatched the window, making it look untouched. Back in his car, Charlie reviewed the photos. The filing cabinet on the right had a lock, but it was cheap, the kind you could open with a paperclip if you knew what you were doing. And in that cabinet, if Ronnie's information was correct, were the records that could bring Travis down. Saturday morning, Emma called him, using the phone from her foster home. "Daddy, can we go to the aquarium today?" They spent the afternoon watching jellyfish pulse through their tanks. Emma pressed against the glass with wide-eyed wonder. She seemed happier, more like herself. The foster family was good to her, but Charlie could see the strain. She was too careful, too quiet, like she'd learned to make herself small. "When can I live with you?" she asked over lunch in the aquarium cafeteria. "Soon, baby. I'm working on it. You promise you won't go back to the jungle and leave me again?" The question hurt because it was fair. Charlie had chosen his career over being present, had convinced himself that video calls and periodic visits were enough. He'd been wrong. "I promise. From now on, you're my first priority. The expeditions, the research, they can wait." "You can't." Emma's smile was bright enough to break his heart. "I love you, Daddy. I love you too, baby girl. More than anything in the world." That night, Charlie met with Eric and Wade one final time. They sat in Eric's apartment, maps and notes spread across the coffee table, going over the plan one last time. "This is insane," Wade said, but without real conviction. "You understand that if any part of this goes wrong, you could end up dead or in prison? If I do nothing, my daughter lives in fear. I've made my choice." Charlie looked at both men. "You don't have to be part of this. I can do it alone." "Bullshit," Eric said flatly. "You need backup. Someone watching your six, making sure you don't walk into something you can't handle." "I'm out once you make your move," Wade clarified. "But I can get you into the fight venue on Tuesday night. Travis will be there. He's scheduled for an exhibition bout. That gives you a window at his apartment." Charlie nodded. "Then Tuesday it is." But Sunday brought a complication. Jane Robinson called with urgency in her voice. "Charlie, we have a problem. Charlene is petitioning the court for Emma's immediate return. She's claiming the foster placement is traumatic, that Emma is asking for her mother, that she and Travis have completed anger management counseling. It's only been 2 weeks. I know, but her lawyer is good, and they're arguing that without criminal charges, the state has no right to keep a child from her mother. The emergency hearing is Monday afternoon. You should be there." Charlie hung up, his carefully laid plans suddenly under a much tighter timeline. If Emma went back to Charlene's care before he'd dealt with Travis, everything became more complicated. He needed to move faster. Sunday night, he called his brother. "I'm going in tonight. Can't wait until Tuesday." "Tonight?" "Charlie, we're not ready. We're as ready as we're going to be. Travis will be at the fight venue tomorrow night, which means tonight he's probably at home. If I'm going to do this, it has to be now." There was a long silence on the line. Then Eric sighed. "Give me an hour to get my gear together." "And Charlie?" "Don't do anything stupid until I get there." They met at midnight in the alley behind Travis's building. Eric had brought more equipment than Charlie expected. Tactical lights, a first aid kit, zip ties, duct tape, and yes, the Glock 19 they practiced with at the range. "Just in case," Eric said, checking the weapon before tucking it into a concealed holster. "You remember what I taught you? Hope I don't need to use it." They moved in the same way Charlie had 2 days before, through the front door behind a resident, up the fire escape, along the narrow ledge to Travis's window. This time, Charlie wore gloves. This time, he was carrying the insulated container with the Fenutria venom. The window opened just as easily as before. Charlie slipped inside, his heart hammering but his hands steady. The apartment was dark, silent. Travis's bedroom was at the other end, door closed. Charlie could hear faint music playing. Travis was home, awake, probably in his room. Charlie moved to the filing cabinet, using his phone's flashlight in red mode to minimize his night vision disruption. The lock took 3 minutes to pick, his fingers working by feel and memory. Inside, just as Ronnie had promised, were ledgers. Physical notebooks documenting transactions that didn't appear in any of Travis's legitimate businesses. Charlie photographed every page, working quickly but methodically. Dates, amounts, initials. It was a prosecutor's dream and a criminal's nightmare. He was halfway through the second notebook when he heard the bedroom door open. Chapter 6, When Predators Collide. Charlie froze, his flashlight off, pressed against the wall beside the filing cabinet. Footsteps padded down the hallway. Travis, from the sound of it, heading toward the kitchen. Charlie had maybe 30 seconds before Travis would notice the open window, the disturbed files. He moved silently to the window, but Travis's voice stopped him. What the hell? Charlie turned. Travis stood in the kitchen doorway, wearing boxer shorts and nothing else, his fighter's body backlit by the hallway light. For a moment, neither man moved. Then recognition flared in Travis's eyes. You, Emma's father. Travis's voice was eerily calm. Breaking into my apartment. That's a bold move. You put your hands on my daughter. I disciplined a child who was out of control. Not that you know anything about discipline, playing with bugs in the jungle while Charlene raised your kid. Travis moved forward, and Charlie saw he was carrying a baseball bat. Now you're my home. Go into my private files. That's a felony, Charlie. Multiple felonies. So call the cops. Let's explain to them why you keep separate books. Let's talk about Clifton Miller and the money you've been skimming. Travis's expression flickered. Surprise, then calculation. You've been busy, and here I thought you were just some soft academic. He set the bat against the counter, moving with predatory confidence. But you made a mistake coming here. Whatever you think you know, whatever you think you can prove, it dies with you. Charlie's hand moved to the vial in his pocket, but Travis was faster than expected. He covered the distance between them in 3 quick steps, his fist driving into Charlie's stomach with professional precision. Charlie went down, gasping, and Travis followed with a kick to the ribs. You don't belong in my world, Travis said, circling Charlie like he was in the cage. You're prey, and prey doesn't win against predators. But Charlie had spent 15 years in jungles and rainforests, and he'd learned that prey had its own defenses. As Travis moved in for another strike, Charlie rolled and came up with the vial uncapped, flicking its contents directly into Travis's face. Travis screamed, clutching at his eyes as the venom made contact with his mucous membranes. It would take a few minutes for the full effects to set in, but the pain was immediate and intense. Charlie didn't wait. He grabbed his phone, stuffed the photographed ledgers back into the cabinet, and headed for the window. Behind him, Travis was already recovering, his fighter's conditioning allowing him to push through pain that would incapacitate most people. You're dead. You hear me? You're fucking dead. Charlie hit the fire escape as Travis lunged for him. They grappled on the narrow metal platform, 3 stories above the alley, both men fighting for position. Travis had size and training, but Charlie had desperation and the advantage of knowing what was about to happen. The venom was already affecting Travis. Charlie could see it in his movements, the way he was blinking rapidly, the tremors starting in his hands. But rage and adrenaline were keeping him going, and he was still dangerous. They crashed against the railing, metal shrieking. Travis got a hand around Charlie's throat, squeezing, and Charlie saw his daughter's bruises reflected in Travis's grip. The same hand, the same violence. Charlie brought his knee up hard, breaking Travis's hold, then shoved him backward. Travis stumbled, his coordination betraying him as the venom affected his nervous system. He went down on the metal grating, clutching at his chest, his face contorting in agony. What did you do to me? Charlie stood over him, breathing hard, tasting blood from a split lip. Phenutria nigriventer, Brazilian wandering spider venom. You're going to experience extreme pain, cardiovascular stress, and some other symptoms you'll really hate. Non-lethal, but you're going to wish it was. Travis tried to stand, but his legs gave out. The venom was spreading through his system now, and Charlie could see the moment when the reality hit. Travis Burt, the golden boy of the underground fighting scene, was completely helpless. You poisoned me. You're insane. No, I'm a father. Charlie started toward the stairs, then paused. The hospital can treat the symptoms, but you're going to have a very painful few hours. And while you're lying there, think about my daughter. Think about what she felt when you grabbed her hard enough to leave bruises. That terror, that helplessness, that's yours now. Charlie descended the fire escape, leaving Travis writhing on the metal platform. At the bottom, Eric materialized from the shadows, his face grim. I heard the fight. You okay? Got what I came for. Charlie showed him the phone with the photographed ledger pages. And Travis just got a taste of his own medicine, literally. He's going to come after you. Not if Clifton Miller gets to him first. They made it to Eric's truck and were 3 blocks away when they heard the sirens. Someone had called 911, probably one of Travis's neighbors reporting the commotion. Charlie watched in the side mirror as emergency vehicles converged on the building. Phase 1 complete, he said quietly. Now we move to Phase 2. Chapter 7. The walls close in. Travis Burt was admitted to Harborview Medical Center at 2 a.m. Monday morning with symptoms that baffled the emergency room staff. Extreme pain, cardiovascular irregularities, uncontrollable muscle spasms, and priapism so severe he required immediate intervention. Toxicology screens came back negative for common drugs and poisons, but the symptoms persisted. Charlie learned this from a nurse he befriended during Emma's initial examination. A guy named Buddy Hahn, who owed Charlie a favor after Charlie had once identified a potentially dangerous spider that had bitten Buddy's son during a camping trip. They're keeping him under observation, Buddy told him over the phone. No idea what hit him, but he's in serious pain. They're treating symptoms, but without knowing the cause, it's just managing. Perfect. That meant Travis would be out of commission for at least 24 hours, possibly longer. And that gave Charlie the window he needed for Phase 2. Monday morning, Charlie attended the emergency custody hearing. Charlene was there with her lawyer, looking exhausted and defensive. Travis's absence was noted, but explained away. A sudden illness, nothing serious. The judge, a stern woman named Michelle Rivas, reviewed the case file with obvious displeasure. Mrs. Burt, the court is concerned that you've been minimizing your husband's actions. Your daughter had significant bruising consistent with aggressive physical discipline. It was one mistake, Your Honor. Travis has been attending counseling, and Emma can be a challenging child. Children are often challenging. That doesn't justify violence. Judge Rivas turned to Charlie. Mr. Aguirre, you've petitioned for emergency custody modification. Your attorney argues that you're now able to provide primary care. How has your situation changed? Charlie stood, meeting the judge's eyes. I've ended my current research expedition early and declined all future travel for the foreseeable future. I've secured a position at the University of Washington's biology department that allows me to work locally. I found a 2-bedroom apartment in Emma's school district. My daughter's safety is my only priority, Your Honor. I'm here, I'm present, and I'm ready to be the father she deserves. Judge Rivas studied him for a long moment. The court appreciates your commitment, Mr. Aguirre. However, the law typically favors maintaining the mother-child bond when possible. Mrs. Burt, the court is going to order continued separation of Emma from your household while Mr. Burt remains in residence. Additionally, you are ordered to undergo family counseling and parenting evaluation. We'll reconvene in 30 days for a full custody review. It wasn't the outcome Charlie wanted, but it bought him time. 30 days for Travis's world to completely fall apart. That afternoon, while Travis was still hospitalized, Charlie put Phase 2 into motion. He'd created an anonymous email account, carefully scrubbed of any identifying information. To this account, he uploaded the photographed ledger pages, along with a carefully worded message explaining what they represented. Evidence of Travis Burt skimming money from Clifton Miller's operations. The email went to 3 recipients. One was an investigative journalist at the Seattle Times who covered organized crime. Another was a detective in the Financial Crimes Division of Seattle PD. The third was a man Ronnie Douglas had identified as one of Clifton Miller's top enforcers. Charlie hit send and then immediately destroyed the phone he'd used to send the emails, dumping in a sound and walking away. There was no going back now. Tuesday morning, Travis was released from the hospital, still experiencing residual pain, but stable enough to go home. That same morning, the Seattle Times published an article, Local Fight Promoter Under Investigation for Money Laundering. The article was carefully worded, avoiding direct accusations, but it laid out a pattern of suspicious financial activity surrounding Travis Burt's various businesses. It mentioned the underground fight venue, the connection to organized crime figures, and hinted at evidence of embezzlement. The journalist had moved fast, probably excited to have such a solid lead. By Tuesday afternoon, Travis's phone was ringing off the hook. Charlie knew this because Wade Barton called him, his voice tight with stress. Whatever you did, Miller's people are losing their minds. They're tearing apart the fight venue, questioning everyone, looking for Travis. And Travis, man, he's terrified. He knows what's coming. He should be terrified. He hurt my daughter. I get that. But Charlie, you need to understand what you've done. Miller doesn't just punish people. He makes examples of them. Travis is a dead man walking. Then he should have thought about consequences before he put his hands on a 7-year-old. Wade was silent for a moment. You're cold, man. Colder than I expected. I'm a father. Cold is what my daughter needs right now. That night, Charlie received a visit from 2 Seattle PD detectives. They wanted to talk about the break-in at Travis Burt's apartment on Sunday night. Travis had filed a report claiming someone had entered his home, assaulted him, and potentially poisoned him. Where were you Sunday night between midnight and 2 a.m.? Detective Hector Byers asked, his pen poised over a notepad. Home, sleeping. Alone, unfortunately, so no alibi. Why? Did something happen to Mr. Burt? He claims he was attacked in his home. Do you know anything about that? I know that he put his hands on my daughter and gave her bruises. I know that the system is protecting him instead of protecting her. But I also know that breaking into someone's home is illegal, and I wouldn't risk my custody case by doing something that's stupid. The detectives pressed for another 20 minutes, but Charlie had prepared for this. He gave them nothing useful, answered every question with careful neutrality, and eventually they left with warnings about taking justice into your own hands and letting the legal system work. After they left, Era called. Cops came to see me too. Asked about my relationship with you, whether we'd discussed Travis, whether I'd helped you with anything. I told them we had a beer last week and talked about sports. Think they believe it. Doesn't matter what they believe. They need proof, and you were careful. But Charlie, Travis is talking. He's telling anyone who will listen that you poisoned him, that you broke into his apartment. He can't prove it, but he's making noise. Let him make noise. He's got bigger problems coming. Wednesday morning brought confirmation of those problems. Doug McKee, Travis's business partner, was found in the Georgetown fight venue, beaten so severely he was in ICU. The message was clear. Clifton Miller was cleaning house, starting with Travis's associates. Travis went into hiding. Charlie learned this from Jane Robinson, who called with an update on the custody case. Mrs. Burt contacted our office. She's filing for divorce from Travis and wants Emma returned to her care. She says Travis has become unstable, that he's involved in criminal activity, that she fears for her safety. How convenient. 2 weeks ago, she was defending him. People change their minds when reality becomes unavoidable, Mr. Aguirre. The question is, do you object to Emma returning to her mother's care? Charlie thought about Charlene, weak, manipulated, but ultimately Emma's mother. Not if Travis is completely out of the picture. Not just physically, legally. I want a restraining order. I want him removed from any custody or visitation consideration, and I want Charlene in intensive counseling. I'll recommend that to the court. Given the recent developments with Mr. Burt's legal troubles, I think the judge will be receptive. That afternoon, Charlie took Emma to Pike Place Market. They walked through the crowds, ate chowder from paper cups, watched the fishmongers throw salmon. Emma seemed lighter, laughing more easily. She didn't ask about Travis or when she'd go home. She just held Charlie's hand and lived in the moment. Daddy, will you teach me about animals like you taught me about the butterflies? Every chance I get, baby girl. Even the dangerous ones? Charlie knelt down to look her in the eyes, especially the dangerous ones. Because the most important thing about dangerous creatures is learning how to recognize them, how to avoid them, and what to do if you can't avoid them. That's how you stay safe. Emma nodded seriously. Like Travis. Yeah, baby. Like Travis. Thursday morning, Travis made a mistake. Desperate and cornered, he reached out to Charlene, asking her to meet him, to help him get to Emma, to somehow use his relationship with Emma as leverage against Miller's retribution. Charlene, to her credit, recorded the conversation and immediately gave it to the police and to social services. The recording was damning. Travis talked about using Emma, about how Charlie had poisoned him and ruined his life, about how if he was going down, everyone was going down with him. It was the unhinged rambling of a man who'd lost control, and it destroyed any remaining sympathy anyone might have had for him. Jane Robinson called Charlie with the news. The court has issued an emergency restraining order. Travis Burt is not to come within 500 feet of Emma or Charlene. If he does, he'll be arrested on sight. Additionally, based on the recording and his deteriorating mental state, we're recommending psychological evaluation and potential involuntary commitment. What about Emma? She can return to her mother's care starting Monday, with conditions. Charlene has agreed to family counseling, parenting classes, and monthly check-ins with our office. And Mr. Aguirre, the judge was impressed with your dedication. You'll have joint custody now, not just visitation. Emma will spend half her time with you. It was more than Charlie had hoped for, and less than he wanted. But it was enough. Emma would be safe, Charlene would be accountable, and Travis Burt was finished. Friday evening, Charlie was at his new apartment, setting up Emma's bedroom, when Eric called. Turn on the news. Channel 7. Charlie found the remote, clicking to the local news. A reporter stood in front of the Georgetown warehouse, police lights flashing behind her. Major breakthrough in what authorities are calling a significant organized crime investigation. Police have raided this underground fighting venue and arrested several individuals connected to money laundering and racketeering charges. Among those arrested is Clifton Miller, a reputed organized crime figure, and several of his associates. Authorities say the investigation was triggered by an anonymous tip that led them to evidence of widespread financial crimes. The reporter continued, but Charlie had heard enough. Miller had been arrested, which meant he wouldn't be coming after Travis personally. But it also meant Travis's entire support structure had collapsed. The fight venue was shut down, the money laundering operation exposed, and anyone who'd been involved was either arrested or running for cover. Travis Burt was ruined. Financially, legally, socially, every aspect of his life had been systematically destroyed. Saturday morning, Charlie got a call from an unknown number. Against his better judgment, he answered. "You did this." Travis's voice was raw, broken. "You poisoned me. You destroyed my business. You turned Charlene against me. You took everything. You hurt my daughter. What did you think was going to happen? I barely touched her. She's fine. But you're a monster. You've destroyed my entire life over one mistake." Charlie felt his anger surge, white-hot and pure. One mistake? You grabbed a 7-year-old hard enough to leave bruises for a week. You made her afraid in her own home. And you know what the worst part is? You still don't get it. You still think you're the victim here. I'll kill you. I swear to God. I'll find you, and I'll kill you and that little brat. Charlie hung up, his hands shaking. He immediately called the police, reported the threat, added it to the growing file on Travis Burt. Then he called his lawyer, his brother, and Jane Robinson. Everyone needed to know that Travis was escalating. That night, Charlie didn't sleep. He sat in Emma's half-finished bedroom, the Glock 19 on the table beside him, waiting for Travis to make his move. Because wounded predators were the most dangerous, and Travis had nothing left to lose. Chapter 8. The Final Hunt. Sunday morning, 3 a.m., Charlie's phone rang. It was Wade Barton, and he was breathing hard. Travis just left his apartment. "He's got a gun, Charlie. He's coming for you." "How do you know?" "Because he called me drunk and high, talking about how he's going to make you pay. He's completely snapped. I tried to talk him down, but he's gone, man. He's got your address. I don't know how, but he has it. Get out of there." Charlie was already moving, grabbing the Glock, checking the magazine. "How far away is he?" "Maybe 10 minutes. Charlie, call the cops. Don't try to handle this yourself. The cops won't get here in time." Charlie moved to the window, looking out at the dark street below. "Thanks for the warning, Wade." He hung up and immediately called 911, reporting that a man with a gun was threatening him, giving his address, emphasizing the danger. Then he called Eric, who answered on the first ring. "Travis is coming, armed and unstable. I've called the cops, but I'm 15 minutes away. Can you hold out that long?" "Going to have to." Charlie killed the lights in his apartment, moving to a position where he could see the building's main entrance. His mind was racing through options, scenarios, outcomes. He'd spent the last 3 weeks planning Travis's downfall, but he hadn't fully prepared for this. the possibility that Travis would throw away everything for revenge. 10 minutes passed. 12. Charlie was starting to think maybe Wade had been wrong, or maybe Travis had changed his mind. Then he saw the BMW pull up across the street, parking illegally, and Travis get out. Even from 4 stories up, Charlie could see Travis was in bad shape. He moved erratically, stumbling, and yes, there was something in his hand, a gun, medium-sized, held with the confidence of someone who'd used firearms before. Charlie's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Come down here and face me like a man, or I start shooting windows until I find the right apartment. Charlie's breath caught. There were families in this building, kids, innocent people who had nothing to do with this. He looked at the Glock in his hand, felt its weight, and made a decision. He texted back, alley behind the building. 5 minutes. Just you and me. Travis's response was immediate. Finally grew a spine. Charlie called 911 again, updating them on the situation, telling them Travis was in the alley. Then he called Eric. He's behind the building. I'm going down. If I'm not back up in 10 minutes, tell Emma I love her. Charlie, don't. Charlie hung up. He checked the Glock one more time, made sure he remembered everything Eric had taught him, and took the stairs down to the ground floor. The building's back exit led directly to the alley, a narrow space between his building and a parking garage, lit by a single sodium lamp that cast everything in sickly yellow. Travis was waiting, leaning against the brick wall, the gun dangling from one hand. He looked terrible, dark circles under his eyes, his face gaunt, his movements twitchy. The venom had taken a toll, but so had the stress, the collapse of his life, the desperation. There you are, Travis said, his words slightly slurred. The great Charlie Aguirre. Jungle man, bug doctor, home wrecker. You wrecked your own home, Travis. I just made sure everyone could see the damage. Spare me the self-righteous bullshit. Travis raised the gun, pointing it at Charlie with surprising steadiness. You know what I learned in the fighting ring? There are winners and losers, predators and prey. I thought you were prey. Soft. Weak. But you're something worse. You're a predator who pretends to be prey. You're a snake. Is that supposed to be an insult? I've spent my life studying snakes. Most of them only strike when threatened. Charlie kept his hands visible, the Glock tucked in his waistband. You threatened my daughter. What did you think I'd do? I think you should have stayed in your jungle. Travis's finger moved to the trigger. Emma's probably better off without either of us. Charlie saw the intention in Travis's eyes, saw the finger start to squeeze, and moved on pure instinct. He dove to the side as the gun went off, the sound deafening in the enclosed space. The bullet sparked off brick where Charlie had been standing. Charlie rolled, coming up with the Glock in his hand, and fired twice. Both shots hit Travis in the center mass, exactly like Eric had taught him. Travis went down, the gun clattering from his hand, his eyes wide with shock. You shot me. You actually shot me. Charlie kicked Travis's gun away, keeping his own weapon trained on the wounded man. Blood was spreading across Travis's shirt, dark and viscous. Charlie had aimed for non-lethal areas, but gunshot wounds were unpredictable. I did, because you gave me no choice. Charlie pulled out his phone, calling 911 for the 3rd time. And now you get to live with being the guy who got beat by this soft academic. How's that feel? Sirens were already approaching. The police had been on their way since Charlie's first call. Travis lay in the alley, bleeding, his face contorted with pain and rage and something that might have been understanding. You win, Travis said, his voice weak. You actually win. But at what cost? You think Emma won't find out what you did? You think she won't learn that her father poisoned someone, broke laws, shot a man? I think she'll learn that her father protected her. And I can live with that. Police flooded the alley moments later, officers with weapons drawn, shouting commands, taking control of the situation. Charlie dropped his gun immediately, hands up, complying with every order. They separated him from Travis, who was loaded into an ambulance, still alive but badly injured. Detective Byers appeared, his expression unreadable. Mr. Aguirre, you're going to need to come with us. There are a lot of questions about tonight. Understand, I shot him in self-defense. He came to my building with a gun, threatened me via text, and fired first. It's all documented. Charlie's voice was steady. And detective? You'll find that gun he was carrying is unregistered. You might want to check it against some unsolved crimes. At the station, Charlie gave his statement 3 times, to Byers, to another detective, to an assistant DA who'd been called in. He had his phone with the threatening texts, had the 911 calls on record, had Wade Barton, who could testify to Travis's threats. It was clear-cut self-defense, and after 6 hours of questioning, they let him go with warnings about staying available for further investigation. Eric picked him up at 8 a.m. Sunday morning. "You look like hell." "I shot a man. I feel like hell." Charlie slumped in the passenger seat. "Is he going to make it?" "Last I heard, he's in surgery but stable." "You hit him the shoulder and side. Serious, but not fatal. He'll probably survive to face charges for attempted murder, illegal firearm possession, and violating a restraining order." Charlie closed his eyes, suddenly exhausted. "I just wanted to protect Emma." "You did. Mission accomplished. Travis Burt is finished. His reputation destroyed, his business collapsed, his freedom gone. No judge is going to let him near Emma ever again." "At what cost?" "Travis was right about one thing. Emma's going to learn what I did eventually." "How do I explain that to her?" Eric was quiet for a moment. "You tell her the truth, that you love her more than anything, and when someone threatened her, you did what you had to do. She might not understand now, but someday she will." They drove through Seattle as the city woke up, early morning light painting everything in shades of gold. Charlie thought about the Amazon, about the pristine simplicity of a rainforest where predators and prey existed in perfect balance. Human justice was messy, more complicated, but in the end, it operated on the same principle. Survival favored those who adapted, who used every tool available, who fought for what mattered most. Travis had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed, and Charlie had responded with everything in his arsenal: his knowledge, his planning, his willingness to do whatever it took. The system had failed Emma, but her father hadn't. Monday morning, Jane Robinson called with the official update. "Given the events of Sunday morning and Travis Burt's arrest, the court has granted you full emergency custody of Emma, pending a final hearing. Mrs. Burt has agreed to a custody-sharing arrangement that gives you primary custody. Emma can come home to you today." Today, Mr. Aguirre. You won. Chapter 9. After the Storm. 6 months later, Charlie stood in his apartment watching Emma read on the couch. She was different now, more confident, quicker to laugh, no longer flinching at sudden movements or loud noises. She'd started therapy with a child psychologist specializing in trauma, and slowly, week by week, she was healing. The final custody arrangement had been settled 3 months ago. Charlie had primary custody. Emma lived with him during the week and went to Charlene on weekends. Charlene was trying, genuinely trying, attending counseling, taking parenting classes, rebuilding her relationship with her daughter. The divorce from Travis had been finalized quickly. He hadn't contested anything from his jail cell. Travis Burt was serving 6 years for attempted murder, illegal weapons possession, and violation of a restraining order. The money laundering charges had been dropped as part of a plea deal, but Clifton Miller's organization had been dismantled, and Travis's testimony had been key to several convictions. He'd become exactly what he'd accused Charlie of being: a snake, cooperating with authorities to save himself. Charlie had returned to work at the University of Washington, teaching and consulting rather than leading expeditions. Hugh visited for Brazil every few months, and they talk about the Amazon, about the research that was continuing without Charlie. It hurt sometimes, giving up that part of his life, but every time the longing for the jungle got too strong, Charlie would look at Emma and remember what he'd gained. "Daddy, can we go to the zoo Saturday?" Emma asked, looking up from her book about marine biology, her current obsession. "Absolutely. Maybe we can visit the Amazon exhibit, see if they have any of those morpho butterflies I told you about. Will you tell me more stories about when you were in the jungle?" "Any story you want, baby girl." Emma smiled and returned to her book. Charlie watched her for a moment, then moved to the kitchen to start dinner. His phone buzzed. A text from Eric. "How's she doing?" Charlie replied, "Better every day. Thanks for everything. That's what family's for. Still think you're crazy for what you pulled off, though." Charlie smiled. The past 6 months had brought police investigations, media attention, legal complications. The full story never came out. Charlie's break-in at Travis's apartment remained unsolved. The poisoning couldn't be proven, and the anonymous tip that had brought down Clifton Miller's organization was attributed to an unknown confidential informant. Wade Barton had kept his mouth shut. Muriel Bryan's paperwork on the missing venom samples had been filed and forgotten, and Eric's role had remained invisible. Charlie had gotten away with it, all of it, and the guilt he'd expected to feel, the moral weight of what he'd done, never quite materialized. Because every time he thought about it, he remembered Emma's bruises, her whispered plea, "Don't let me go back there." He'd been the father she needed, even when that meant becoming someone he'd never thought he could be. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Charlie checked the peephole. Charlene, arriving for her weekly supervised dinner with Emma. The supervision was mostly a formality now, but Charlie maintained it because consistency mattered for Emma's sense of security. He opened the door, and Charlene smiled hesitantly. "Hi, Charlie. Is Emma ready?" "Just finishing her book. Come in." They'd found a careful peace, he and Charlene. Not friendship exactly, but something functional, built on their shared love for Emma. Charlene had apologized more than once for choosing Travis, for not seeing the danger, for failing to protect their daughter. Charlie had accepted the apologies because holding grudges wouldn't help Emma heal. "How have you been?" Charlene asked, settling into the kitchen chair while they waited for Emma to reach a stopping point in her reading. "Good. Busy with teaching, but good. Emma's thriving. I can see that. She's so much happier than." Charlene trailed off, not wanting to finish the sentence. "Thank you, Charlie, for doing what I couldn't." Charlie met her eyes. "You're doing it now. That's what matters." Emma eventually emerged, hugging Charlie tight before leaving with her mother. After they left, the apartment felt too quiet, so Charlie turned on music, something classical, peaceful, and settled at his desk to review papers from his graduate students. But his mind wandered to the Amazon, to those last moments before the helicopter had arrived. He'd been tracking a morpho butterfly, completely absorbed in his work, with no idea that his life was about to fracture and reform into something new. That butterfly was probably still out there, dancing through the canopy, living its brief and beautiful life, while Charlie's had taken a much darker turn. No regrets, though. Charlie had chosen this path, had taken on the role of predator when his daughter needed protecting. He'd studied dangerous creatures his entire career, but he'd become one himself when it mattered most. His phone buzzed again. Jane Robinson this time. "Just wanted to check in. How's Emma adjusting to the permanent arrangement?" Charlie typed back. "She's adjusting well. Happy, healthy, safe. Thank you for everything you did for us. That's my job. But Mr. Aguirre, between us, I've been doing this work for over 2 decades, and I've seen a lot of fathers make promises about changing for their kids. You're one of the few who actually did it. Emma's lucky to have you." Charlie read the message 3 times, feeling something tight in his chest finally begin to loosen. Emma was safe. The nightmare was over. And somehow, against all odds, they'd come through it intact. He looked at the photo on his desk. Emma at the zoo, grinning while holding a toy snake she'd insisted on buying. Behind her, partially visible in the background, was the Brazilian rainforest exhibit, a small piece of the Amazon recreated in glass and concrete. It wasn't the real thing, but it was close enough. Charlie had given up the jungle to save his daughter. But he discovered something more valuable in the process. That the fiercest predator, the most dangerous creature, the apex hunter that no one should ever underestimate, was a parent protecting their child. Travis Burt had learned that lesson too late, and now he had 6 years in prison to think about what happens when you hurt the wrong man's daughter. Charlie closed his laptop, turned off the lights, and settled onto the couch where Emma had been reading. He picked up her book, a detailed guide to venomous sea creatures, and smiled. His daughter was developing her father's interests, his curiosity about the natural world's dangerous beauty. But she'd never need to use that knowledge the way he had. She'd never need to become a hunter, a strategist, someone willing to cross every line to protect what mattered most. Because Charlie had already done that for her. The morpho butterfly in the Amazon was still flying, still beautiful, still free. And here in Seattle, Emma was safe, healing, and growing into the person she was meant to be. That was all that mattered. Charlie closed his eyes, finally allowing himself to rest. The hunt was over. The predator could go dormant again, at least until his daughter needed him. And if that day ever came, well, Charlie had proven exactly what he was capable of.
This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.